This podcast is brought to you by Penji. Penji is a creative subscription service that gives you access to pre-vetted, agency-trained creatives from all over the world. From graphic design to illustrations to social media management and web development, it's all included for one monthly price. It's time to say goodbye to the hassle of searching for top-notch creative talent. With Penji, you get quality and consistency delivered right to your inbox every day. Carefully crafted for you by humans. So meet your new creative team today. Head over to penji.co for more and enter the coupon code located within the podcast show notes.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to the Fully Managed by Penji podcast, the show where we explore marketing and business insights to help you grow out your brand. I'm your host, Oliver, Penji's partnership advisor. And today I'm joined by a very special guest, Nate Turner from 10 Speed. Nate, thank you so much for joining me here today.
Yeah, thanks, Oliver.
I appreciate that. Now, before we dive into 10 Speed, let's warm up with a quick game I like to call Pitch Me This. You will have 30 seconds to sell me this idea. I always like to keep the prompts themed to my guest's expertise.
Sure.
But I'll warn you, these are kind of crazy, and we'll see where the creativity goes. Okay, you ready?
Yes.
Okay, you have 30 seconds to sell me this idea. The prompt for today is a search engine that is very, very precise, but it only gives you the exact opposite of what you search. Go.
When you are trying to solve a problem, do you think about the problem or do you think about the solution?
I think about the solution, yeah.
Yeah. So if you don't know what the solution is, then how can you solve the problem? So you're trying to find different problems, right? And so by searching and getting the opposite of what you are trying to find, you then learn a bit more about the other side of your problem, the other side. And I think through that process, typically you can come to solutions that you might not otherwise come to.
Yeah, that's
rather than solving it for yourself, this allows you to, kind of back into some different ways and things that you would not otherwise think of.
Well, that's yeah, that sounds reasonable. I'm actually sold. I'm going to buy some stock on that very soon.
That's pretty hard one to sell, but that's the best.
Yeah, it's a mix and match. There were some others that were kind of, let's say, easier. For example, there was one that's my favorite so far, which was a restaurant that changes its menu every 10 minutes. Of course, it has its own issues, but it was a very creative one. So yeah, it's just a mix and match, and you did a great job, actually. Good job. I think this is one of the hardest ones that I have thought of so far. What do you think? Is it like something that you can sell, something that you can develop?
Yeah, it's definitely hard, especially in 30 seconds on the spot. But
yeah. Well, that's what we're here for. That's the only question that will put you on the spot in this podcast.
All right. Good deal.
So, Nate, to start us off, can you tell us a little bit about yourself and your story with 10 Speed?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm Nate Turner, co-founder of 10 Speed, and I'm in the Chicago area. And my partner Kevin and I, we co-founded 10 Speed in summer, early fall of 2020. So just a little over 5 years in now, and I was consulting prior to starting it, and just really saw working with a lot of B2B companies and SaaS companies that there was still companies needed a lot of help around quality execution, as well as the strategy and bigger picture around organic growth. So we started out heavily in kind of SEO and content marketing, and over time have kind of built that out to be, a bit more robust. And that's kind of our plan, is continue to expand into more non-paid channels to support organic growth. So so we've grown. We now have 15 full-time employees and about 20 contractors as well. So we're fully remote. The team's spread out throughout the US, and just working with a lot of B2B companies, a little bit on the e-commerce side as well.
Sounds great. You mentioned that you guys were born on 2020. We all know that was a very crazy year, and that sold it short. How do you think that year influenced on 10-speed in its creation?
Well, it was interesting because we thought, hey, we're starting this in the middle of the pandemic and a lot of challenges with the companies, and this is probably the hardest it'll ever be, which was very naive. So there's been, obviously a number of things. We were heavily concentrated in SaaS, through 2022 when there was a bit of kind of a mini SaaS recession. And so we've been through a lot of that. So I think, I think we have an advantage in that we, I think you could argue like we're a post-COVID company. So, there's certainly a lot of agencies prior to that were all in person, then had to figure out going remote, and then their team dispersed, and, just like very different to just start out fully remote. And even, my co-founder was in Chicago and I'm in the suburbs, and we were remote, and we're still remote today, even though we're, not that far apart ultimately. So I think that was probably, a strength for sure, is just starting in that sort of new era of work entirely, not having to deal with adapting if we had started sooner.
Yeah, that's one of the most unique perspectives I heard about just starting work in this post-COVID world. It's not like you adapt; you were already born in it. That's right. You already know how to do things because you were there. No.
Yes.
So one thing about SEO that me as a fellow marketer, and let me tell you a little bit. I worked on marketing for a couple of years now, and me personally, they always ask me, "Hey, what's SEO?" And I know it's a lot of different technical things, but there's also some work to be done for the search engines. But you, with your insight and your experience, can you tell us and our audience what's SEO in the simplest terms possible?
Yeah, SEO being search engine optimization, it really is the pursuit of doing the things that will help your content or your company or your products be found in the search engines by the right people. So I think there's on-page elements, there's technical elements, there's off-page authority things like getting backlinks, and so it's definitely evolved a lot. It was very hackable in the early days, and then there were a lot of like spam updates and quality and freshness updates, and the algorithms got better, and so it's definitely evolved. Even just in the last few years, sort of pre-AI search, a lot of like the expertise and authority, all of those became more and more important. So it was like harder and harder to game, and more about just being credible and authoritative and good at marketing, in general, not just let's change the keywords on this page and grow our company. It's become much more holistic and well-rounded. So there are still a lot of the same or similar inputs and tactics at a very high level, but I think the underlying nature of it has changed a lot. And then obviously in the last year alone, kind of the rise of AI search and GEO or AEO or whatever you want to call it is changing all of that even more within the space and kind of how companies adapt to that. So, but yeah, at the basic level, you're trying to figure out how to get into that search engine. And ultimately the search engine's objective is to surface the best thing. So they're constantly understanding natural language and what the intent of the person is and matching that. So really, it's not about gaming it. It's just about doing that research, understanding what people, your target audience, what matters to them, what their intent is, how you solve their problem. That's ultimately one of the underlying principles of trying to do those tactics that I mentioned.
Yeah, you actually read my mind a bit in there, because for me, for a long time, and I'll admit this, SEO was only keywords and just website optimization, so it got a lot faster, until I took a personalized SEO course just last year. Mm-hmm. And I realized that, what you said is all true. It all changed to being more than keywords, more than backlinks, more than gaming the system, as they used to say, because now with the rise of AI, things have changed a lot. And you mentioned that GEO. Now I see a lot of people using these AI chats to search for solutions. People no longer only go to Google; they go to the Google summary that's at the beginning, but also to ChatGPT. Yep. How do you deal with that? How do you deal with GEO in this modern post-AI world?
Yeah, well, I think it's the interesting thing is even as recent as a year ago, it wasn't really really at the beginning of 2025 is when it started to push a lot, and it was a couple things. One, I think the models got better. Two, prior to that, it was a lot of things where you would look up information, the model would sometimes tell you, I've only been trained on data through 2021. So it's it kind of was limiting the ways you could use it. Then you kind of had this I can plug in a search ability as well. And then that just sort of became default to where the AI, the LLMs are knowing if they need to go search for something and kind of pull some of that additional context. And so that's where I think it really started the use cases there exploded and started to change that. And so I think there's a lot of just rapid learning and kind of figuring out what does matter, what doesn't, how does it work? How are citations working? There's very little visibility even compared to Google Search Console in terms of actual, what people are searching and, the queries and conversations within those tools. So I think there's a lot that's been determined so far that good SEO, does translate over into good GEO. But there are certainly nuances and small differences and things that it's just a lot of us are experimenting and working through. And so that's been a big advantage for our clients as well. It's just we have that visibility across more companies and knowing what's working and what's not and kind of helping them navigate the change. But overall, I think we're seeing a lot of net increase in search volume. So certainly some types of queries have shifted away from organic search. And then there's just brand new things people wouldn't have searched before in a search engine that they are asking of an LLM now. But then there are also, links, in certain results in the LLM. So you're getting traffic back that way. Plus, it may tell you, here's some of the top agencies for, whatever you're looking for. And then you can either click through those links, or if there's no links, then that is a lot of times then turning into a navigational query in Google search to go find that company, or go directly to their website. So, so it's definitely a lot of change. I think each month this year has given more and more clarity to the space and really, I think revealed that, it's an iteration of SEO, ultimately. And a lot of the skill set of SEOs are very much translating into helping companies with getting more share of voice, more citations, in LLMs.
That's pretty interesting. Could you say that it's like having a separate search engine that's only, let's say, AI ChatGPT, and you're working as that like it was a separate search engine?
Are you saying? Sorry, ask that again.
Yeah, I said that we could say that you are treating GEO like it was a separate search engine, ChatGPT and DeepSeek, and they have their own rules.
Mm. Yes and no. I mean, certainly, we're seeing it is very different. When you look at any company, how they do show up in each LLM, because they are different. So a lot of our clients seem to be having more visibility and like better citation rates in ChatGPT than say Gemini or Claude. So there is definitely differences there. I don't suspect there will be a lot, just like 5-10 years ago, or even today. We don't like try to do different things for showing up in Google versus showing up in Bing. There's just there's not really a lot you can do. It's just kind of a result of their parameters and in this case, the models. So there's not a lot to do there. But there are certain things when thinking about organic search versus like the LLM or AI search that are certainly what's kind of being tested and figured out. So there's like more, chunked answers or like summarized things, like just some of the structuring of the content and things like that are kind of what's being worked through. But I think ultimately we'll be trying to kind of optimize for all of it.
Yeah, that's a very great answer. This question came to mind because I realized that, well, not only the people that I talk to, but myself, that my Google search queries are getting more and more specific. It is no longer, hey, local hospitals or local basketball shoes vendors, stores. It's more like, hey, if I have this shoe from 2018, what will be a great upgrade to this, and things like that. So the queries are getting more and more specific. I see it in myself, in my own experience, and in the experience of people I talk to. So do you think that's a game changer for search engines?
I don't know initially. I think there's a couple parts to that. One is like long tail queries have always been a thing, within search. It's just in the past, a long time ago, like a 5 or 6 word query was considered long tail because you were, everyone's trying to go after head terms, early on, like just basketball shoes or, something like that. So I think it's an evolution of the long tail. It's a big part of why, I think that like the search volume isn't necessarily decreasing within organic search, just shifting. And there are things, but the second part is obviously Google being the biggest search engine. They're obviously going through their own evolution. Like the AI overviews has become increasing number of queries, so that's like already a little bit of an evolution where it kind of helps. They're evolving their product to answer those longer queries more specifically. And then they also obviously are working through AI mode as well, which I think, is kind of still to be determined how that all comes together and what they ultimately make the default experience. But I think that, it's just kind of a shift in user behavior, and search engines are primarily adapting to that. But then ultimately, I think we'll just see more and more long tail query stuff in the data as well.
Yeah, I think the days of a long tail term query that has a low cost per click are over. Like everyone's having their long term query now.
Yeah.
So going back to 10 speed, can you walk us through a little bit of your core services?
Yeah. So we definitely do a lot around content strategy. And so that can include, a good amount of blog content if that's what's needed based on the client's objectives. But we also do a good amount with like we call like core pages. So, feature pages or solution pages, anything there to either update or create new ones, case studies, research reports, in sort of like ebooks, guys. So there's quite a bit on the content side that we cover a lot of that spectrum. And then obviously doing that from, SEO and GEO in mind. So we want to create content that works, not just as one, it's not purely for search. Like organic search is a distribution channel, but there are, a lot of use cases and ways you can use content and repurpose content. So our goal is really, aligning to ICP and the goals of the client and, what they're trying to ultimately accomplish, with, like I said, SEO and GEO in mind. And then additionally kind of, more stuff around digital PR, social media, and like email, newsletter, that kind of stuff to just support some of the additional distribution channels.
Yeah, that sounds great. Nate, there's a question that I always like to ask my guests, especially if they are an agency like yours, is that, in my opinion, every agency has its own philosophy, way of working, or what I like to call, because I like to have a little bit of fun here in this AI world, is their flavor of marketing. So if I ask you, hey Nate, what defines 10 Speed's flavor of marketing? What will you say?
I would say, I wouldn't know how to call it a flavor per se, but I think we're very focused on, like real business impact, like leads, pipeline, revenue. And so I think we've gotten better and better at that over the years. And that's really kind of been our objective. My co-founder and I both came from kind of broader acquisition and growth backgrounds and, have owned pipeline numbers and all that. And so that's just sort of in our DNA and the way that we work, and wouldn't want to try to have any client spend money with us that wasn't doing something to ultimately help their bottom line. So obviously there are a lot of additional benefits that come from things we do, around content, building awareness, improving reputation and trust and loyalty. And there's all kinds of things that are really, really beneficial to an overall brand and marketing program. But it's ultimately, I think, secondary, and the real driver and objective is revenue.
Yep, I like that straight to the point answer. Yeah. Revenue. Yeah, if your client comes to you with some money to invest for their business, and you answer them with, "Hey, we increase your revenue by 10 times or a percentage," that's straight up what everyone does. Yeah,
and even to the point where like we do a pretty thorough proposal process, because we don't see it as like, oh, we're just giving away a bunch of free strategy. It's just as much due diligence on our end to make sure we feel good about being able to make an impact for a company, as it is like giving a more detailed, proposal to them. So, we've certainly had companies where we've come through and said, hey, there's really not a lot here. Either it's like a smaller investment than what you were thinking, or, your e-commerce, like there's nothing here at the moment, like just go put it into influencer marketing or something, and, come back to us in a few years when things are more established and whatever. And so we're always trying to be pretty diligent about knowing that we can have a positive impact on those business metrics for the company.
So do you have a client story or a project that stands out to you where it highlights what you just said?
Well, I guess what I was just saying was more like turning turning people away and not working with them.
No, I meant one where you're working with them. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. We had a company we worked with that actually came to us pretty early on, and they had they just didn't have a lot of domain authority. They were a little below where we wanted to be, and so we were upfront about that, and ultimately kind of started out on a slower, they still wanted to work, but we were like, let's start out on a lower engagement, and we'll really focus on some of these very, very core topics to start, because they had some PR stuff planned and a product launch planned and some stuff that we felt like there was a decent chance they were going to get some of that domain authority and just brand awareness starting to build up in the near future. So we started there, and then I think after about a year really started to ramp up production as that was growing, and it was maybe about 15-16 months in, then once we had already kind of set a good foundation on core topics, their authority started to grow, awareness started to grow, and then when we ramped that up, then we really kind of saw almost that traditional hockey stick growth for organic traffic, and then that was carrying through very reliably into signups and pipeline and revenue. So we were after the right things. It was well timed, and it was just kind of a good collaboration. So I ended up working with them for about 3 years before they brought the whole thing in house.
That's a great story, and it actually highlights one of the things that I always had in mind when thinking about SEO. It's always about the long game, right? For you?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's in the right scenarios, it doesn't take 6 months. It's not. A lot of people want to just set this default, you won't see anything for 6 months, but there are plenty of scenarios where if you are very early in your domain authority and brand isn't quite there, it could be well over a year, depending on how much you're investing, how fast you want to go. But ultimately it is definitely a channel that builds on itself over time. And so, yes, what you can accomplish good things in 6 months, but 12 months will be more, and 3 years will be more, and 8 years will be, should continue to build and dwarf the previous performance, assuming you're continue to do the right things and building on it. So definitely a long game. But it's like I said, there's a lot early on, and then we're certainly seeing the interesting thing with AI search is that the concept of domain authority and whatnot is not really as relevant in a ranking factor the way it has been with organic search, and so there are small earlier companies that can actually get great exposure, and we've seen that with some of our clients where the growth on leads from LLMs has outpaced in the first year the growth that we've had from organic search, purely because their brand's still growing, but they've just done the right things, gotten in the right places on the LLM results and citations that they're getting a lot from that.
So going a little bit more technical in that, because I work with Google Tag Manager and Search Console before, and I love for us to learn and for me to learn this too. You mentioned that, some leads, some sales were made by LLMs. Were they tracked by a specific tag? Hey, these guys came from ChatGPT, or was it more like the guys where they went to the store to buy something and they mentioned, hey, we came from ChatGPT and things like that?
Yeah. So that is entirely from referral traffic from LLMs. So coming through into Google Analytics as referral traffic from ChatGPT or Gemini or any of those, and then carrying through in those sessions to convert. So again, that's not the whole picture, because there are a lot of queries on the LLM side that don't give links to click through, and I don't know what the click through rate is on LLM results. I don't think it's very high, because it's not the same as a navigational search that you would typically do in Google. So so I think there's a lot more influence that comes in other ways and is not necessarily so directly tracked. But in this case, we were looking at the direct signups and revenue coming from the referral traffic from LLMs.
Okay, that's actually quite new to me. Thank you for teaching it, and thank you for teaching our audience too. Because when I was using Google Analytics last year, let me tell you, ChatGPT was not anywhere near the referral links on the dashboard of analytics, but I'm sure things have changed now. And I know that speaking of change, I know that things have also changed throughout the years, but 10 speed has always been there in this post-pandemic world, and now we're in an AI world. With all of this expertise combined, do you feel like you gain a special insight about SEO, and if you would like to share it with us?
Just in terms of going just from the past 5 years and all of our experience, is that I would say the first one that comes to mind is we talked about that you said SEO is a long game, and I was talking about over time it builds on itself and it grows. A lot of that really comes down to how committed the organization is to the channel. It's obviously, again, we're navigating a lot of different time right now and some fragmentation of how people search and where. But overall, I think there's still a lot of companies that their number one channel, for leads and revenue is organic search. I think it will continue to be for a long time. It's just how that looks is going to change. So organizational commitment is big, to not say, hey, we're going to test this for 6 months, or pull the plug on an investment after a year. And we just see that, and that's another thing we really try to look for up front, when talking to companies about working with them is what's your CEO think of this initiative? Are they the ones pushing for it, or are you having to convince them? So I'd say organizational buy-in has nothing to do with anything tactical in the world of SEO or even just organic growth more broadly. But it is a huge factor for sure. And then I think second to that would just be because we talked about a long time ago, was you could spam and hack your way through a lot of stuff, and it's changed. There's not as many ways around you can't get around the fact that a company has a crappy product or a good product but nobody wants it, just no product market fit. And so I mean that comes through in G2 and Trust Radius reviews of products. It comes through in Clutch reviews of services. There's just a lot of factors that really just can't be avoided. So you can't, more and more, and especially on the LLM side, you can't just put the right keywords on a page and get tons of leads, even though your product has problems, or people don't want it, or they aren't going to stick around. You have to have good marketing across the board, a strong brand, positive reputation, a good product, good onboarding experience, just end to end. Have to be a good company, good product, good service. And I think that that's, again, not as much a like turn the dials on this SEO kind of thing, but it is a foundational thing that really does make a big difference.
Yeah, I completely agree with you in there. I when I worked on marketing a couple of years ago, they always thought that, hey, we're going to get this guy, he's going to do the marketing, and everything is going to be fine. Our product is going to be more interesting. Our website is going to be more, better and things like that. So it's not a one-man effort; it's a constant business effort.
Correct.
So for my last question, Nate, I would like to know what's next for 10-Speed. Any new services, goals, or projects you're excited about?
Yeah, I mean, we are in the process of rolling out more design services. So, as part of looking at kind of organic growth and, what that meant beyond all of the content that we write is understanding a lot of the social, visual, like just things we want to do, the strength of research reports, social content, email design, all that. Like there's more and more things that require design, and is definitely an area that is useful for our clients to be able to have it come ready to go, and they don't have to use internal design bandwidth or go find a contractor. And then on top of that, just really kind of building out and making more robust some of our services around social media and digital PR are kind of the next two steps. So design, social, and digital PR are the three areas where we're leaning in quite a bit.
It's great to hear that 10-Speed is expanding, and we're looking forward to seeing where you guys are in a couple of years. Hopefully way bigger than what we think. So Nate, with that vision for the future of 10-Speed, we'll wrap up today's conversation. Thank you so much for sharing your story and the impact your team is having in the marketing world. For anyone listening, if you'd like to learn more about 10-Speed or see how their work will help your business, you can check out the links in the description. As always, thank you all for tuning in. And Nate, thank you once again for your time.
Yep. Thanks, Oliver.
Bye.
You've been listening to Fully Managed, brought to you by Penji. Check out the show notes to learn more about today's guest. And to learn more about Penji, the human-first creative subscription service, head over to penji.co. And by the way, if you're still listening, it would mean the absolute world to us if you were to share this podcast with a friend and, of course, subscribe.